Okay, welcome back. Now you'll notice in our last video we did a test fit of the nose just to see what it would look like roughly once it was mounted. I wanted to show you what the front of the car looked like without the front nose on, just so you could see a few of the things that we need to handle before we actually mount the nose. Now the bracket that I keep on raving on about, this one here, I've placed that on top of the modified one. Okay, but you can see that I've made a few changes. Okay, now these brackets here have to be cut off. Okay, I thought I could keep them on, but I have to concede defeat and admit that they can't be kept. The main problem being is that because of the fiberglass nose, obviously the fiberglass is a lot more rigid than the standard rubber nose of a Pontiac. So this is really flexible. You can really get stuff in behind it, and that's where those brackets sit. They sit in behind that area there. With the fiberglass nose, we don't have that flexibility. It's quite rigid and it's quite tough, which is a good thing. But for fitting purposes, it's a bit of a pain in the bum. So that's why you'll find that between the fender and this part here, there'll be a little bit of gap, which you can make up with filler or rubber or washers or however you deem fit. It's pretty much up to you. But let's just go back to the bracket. You can see we've cut that off nicely here. Okay, and you can also see that this top part here that I was talking about, we've actually cut that off, and you've got a nice level edge there. You forgive my lack of craftsmanship there. It's a bit, it's a little bit dodgy, but I'm not a tradesman, so I'm sure most of you can make that a little bit better than what I've done. Now you notice there's a little slit there. I've actually cut that on purpose, because when I was actually trying to fit the bracket in behind the front nose, it kept on bending and flexing once this part was actually cut off. So I thought I was going to need some more room and made a cut there. As it turns out, though, I don't really need it. So just note to self, you guys don't need to do that, because you won't be trying to fit all the bracket work behind these flanges at all. You can just simply pop it back onto your car once you've actually made the cuts to the side. Okay, let's get rid of that. Okay. Alright. And there you can see it just balancing on there. We've screwed it on, back onto the bolts. Okay, and it just sits there nice and firmly like it did before. Now, because we cut those side edges off, you notice that this is going to wobble up and down. It's got nothing to sit on. So what we're going to do is do a couple of modifications, and we're going to use the impact absorption bar that is normally on the car. Now this part here normally sits in between this area. Okay, so we need to make a couple of cuts. First off, you'll need to cut in there, take that bit off, and we'll get that, and we're going to place that right under here. It's a bit hard because I've only got one hand. Okay. Now you're probably thinking, okay, that sits nice and loose in there, but once that nose comes on there, this is going to put a massive amount of pressure on. It's going to push that right down, and you'll find that it's actually going to bring a lot of support to your fiberglass bumper, and it's going to bring it up a bit closer to the hood where it's supposed to be as well. If you don't want to do that, you just leave it off, and you can just put a little bit of rubber under there just to make sure that that's not bouncing up and down. Okay, and then you'll get that's a bit of a sagging effect on your bumper instead. Okay, so we found the impact absorption bar to be quite useful, and you'll be able to keep this part and the side parts. Just when you put the bumper on, you'll have to curve it around one side first and then on the other side as well. Okay, just trying to think if there's anything that we've forgotten. I think that's pretty much about it, and we can probably continue anything else in the next video. But that is what we need to do to prep the rest of the car before we actually put the front nose on. Actually, before I forget, these are the bolts that you're going to have to use to connect the bumper to the fender. Okay, that's what they look like. I'll just get the packet for you so you can see what it looks like. Okay, high tensile M6 by 50mm. So get a couple of packets of those. Get some washers that'll fit too. Okay, you can get them at any Bunnings store as well. Don't use obviously the ones that come with the with these brackets, because as I mentioned earlier, those parts are actually spot welded on there, so you can't use them. They're essentially useless. Okay. Now, what we're going to do to level the bumper out underneath the turn signal areas is use these rubber door stops. Again, pick them up from Bunnings. They're fantastic. Place one under there, also on there, and that's going to sit under this portion of the bumper. Okay. I recommend putting these on after you put the bumper on, not beforehand, because you need to wedge them in. You can put them under there as well for extra support. Really depends on what sort of support you need to raise it to the level that you want. Alright. Now, we've got some other rubber door stops as well. A little bit smaller. Okay. And we're going to place them at strategic levels along here. There's holes in these ones too, so you can actually drill these in as you want to. But again, I would place them in after you've actually put the bumper on, just so you can get the desired height that you want. Okay. So don't forget to cut that part out of this section here. Pop them under there. Do it on both sides, obviously, if you want both sides done. And you'll find that will give you such good support and flexibility at the same time as well. Now, I've done a lot of cutting and grinding here. What level of professionalism you apply to this is up to you. It's not going to be hard to do, but for the purposes of this video, like I said, I've just made the cuts as necessary so that you can see what needs to be done. When you actually take the bolts off of the car and put these and use the new ones, you'll also need a what measurement is this? I think it's 10mm, but you'll need the extension because these sit quite long in behind the fender, and if you don't get that long extension with the long hole in it, you'll be sitting there with a shifting spanner for absolute ages trying to get access to this nut that you need to get to. So get that long extension, and you can get your shifter in there. Mainly because you'll need to access the car from in there. Depends on how nimble your hands are, or you'll need to actually get in from underneath the car. I had to do it both, so it was a bit of a pain. But nonetheless, you can do it by yourself. I'd recommend working with two people to do this section though. Alright guys, that's it. We'll see you in the next video.